Hello guys, I want to show you a quick update on my grasshopper model, the model I'm entered into ISM's Steel Rain group build. As you can see, I've primed and painted it, and I'm in the first stages of the weathering process. So I just wanted to show you what I've done, talk to you about a few the way I painted it and what I'm doing to it, and what I'm going to do further along the build. That's it. So I've primed, painted all the tools, and I've applied filters and washes, as you can see. And what I've done was I've used Vallejo's primers, dark yellow for the model and Panzer Grey for the road wheels and tracks. I've also used the dark yellow to prime all the rest of the elements of the build, but I'll talk more about that later. After I've primed it, and this is the first time I'm using a base color primer, and I must say I like it very much because it not only saves you one step of the build and saves you time, but it also helps you in keeping the amount of layers one layer lower. Well, to some it might make a difference, to others it might not, I don't know. I like it this way, it's easier and just simpler and faster. After priming, I left it to rest for 24 hours, and then I used 2 parts Radom Tan and 1 part dark yellow from Vallejo Model Air. I mixed them, and I've used these colors to accentuate panels, break some surfaces, help in, to, just make the model look a bit better, in my opinion. I'm a fan of this kind of painting, so I usually do this. And after I've modulated the model, I accentuated all the rest of the details and highlighted them with 1 part buff and 2 parts Vallejo white model color. And with this I simply painted all the hinges, little details, and parts I really didn't want to lose after the weathering process has been applied. I then used straight buff for the fender supports, and I think it was better this way because I didn't really want them too striking. I want them to be middle ground between being the same color as the vehicle or as lighter as all the highlights I've painted on the vehicle. I then used Vallejo model colors for the rest of the tools, natural steel for the metal parts of the tools, and flat brown for the exhausts. Also used another model color, another Vallejo color from Panzer Aces, their range called Panzer Aces, called New Wood, to paint the handles on the tools. Okay, after that I've used I've coated the model with Vallejo Model Air satin varnish, and I usually use satin varnish because I find that it works best to apply the enamel effects I usually use. I do almost all my weathering with enamels. I really like them, and I think they flow much better if you have a satin base coat. It will also work very well, I think, with a gloss coat, although I think it might be too glossy and probably you will lose some control of it because it's just too glossy, and probably will you'll have your effects becoming too hard to adhere to the surface. So after that, and after it dried for a couple of hours, I applied a mix of 50-50 parts of Africa Core filter and 10 for tritonal camo filters, and apply them not evenly, but for the most part I applied them to the complete model, and then I went back into a few of the surfaces. I applied an extra coat of the filters, but I must say I don't usually use them out of the bottle because they are too strong in my opinion. So what I do is I use a bit of white spirit to dilute the effects and apply the filters on the model. It seems it might not look visible at first, but it does change the appearance of the model. It does make the model integrate more of the different parts of the painting, especially the modulation. Ever since I've started doing this type of painting, which I love, I always use a filter because it helps break that extreme first appearance of the model. It's too striking if you don't use the filters. But once you do the filters, all the colors are tied together, and I think it works best with the filters. After they dried, I applied a also diluted wash of, this is the dark yellow, AK Interactive's dark yellow wash. I'll also applied it somewhat diluted. And in some cases, such as this engine deck here, what I've done was to moisten my paintbrush, my flat paintbrush, on the thinner, tap it a few times on a paper towel, and then I applied the thinner to the surface of the deck. And afterwards, I went with a very precise brush and applied the washes detail by detail. After it dried, I went back with a moist paintbrush and took away all the parts I thought were too extreme or had run off or something. And this is how it looks after that process. So I haven't done anything else to it. It's just the way it turned out this way after I've done my washes. So guys, I want to also show you a few other parts I've painted on this build. This model comes with a few brackets or supports or structures, I don't know what to call these. These will sit on the actual vehicle, and I thought I would, wait a second, this is too dark, so let me just put something white beneath it. I thought I would try and make it look as if the vehicle had been abandoned amidst the tryouts and prototype phases, and just left to be abandoned on the factory grounds. That's the way I want to sort of represent my vehicle. I know it's not realistic or anything, but according to what I've read, only about 3 to 5 vehicles were actually used. Of the 10, I believe, were produced. So of those 10, I think 2 or 3 were different stages of development and had different solutions. Even for the lifting device, they had at first a mechanical and hydraulic lifting device, and only later they changed it for this manual lifting device, which used just human strength to lift up the turret. So what I want to do is to set the model on its base. These two parts, which would sit, these two bits here would sit supposedly here. Sorry. When the crane was down, where this lifting device was down, they would be here, applied here. But I think I'm not going to do that. I'm going to apply them on the ground, maybe one leaning against the vehicle, another simply on the ground, unpainted, just with a primer, with a red primer, maybe some rust on them, because I really don't want to use them on the ground. I want the crane to be naked from these parts. I will, however, use these on the vehicle, and they go on like this. Sorry. So they'll look a bit more, they'll have a bit more contrast. They'll add a bit more interest, in my opinion, to the vehicle. Make it look a bit weirder, if I may say so, and make it look a bit more interesting. And I think I do have a bit of freedom on this vehicle. It's not very known. It's not a very there's not much information about this vehicle except for the development stages of the vehicle. Once the vehicle is left to the factory, there's no real information that I could find about its combat history or anything. So I'm going to do it in my way. Let's say that I'm going to take some really serious artistic license on this. Hope you guys can forgive me that, and I'll use that artistic license to produce just an interesting piece if I can, if I'm able to. I painted these parts with the set from AK Interactive, which is German primer modulation set, I believe. It's made of 6 colors, but I only used a few. So this is the dark one, the shadows. I've used the base, and then I used the highlight. There's a degree between all of them. There's one between these and one next to this one, but I thought that would be overkill for such a small part, so I've applied the shadow on the inside of these structures. Then on the outside I applied the base primer, and then I've just made it a bit more shiny, let's say, not shiny but brighter on top of the structures, so that it could be a little bit varied and better looking. I must say that these paints quite surprised me. I had this set for a while, but I've never had used it. And these are very thin, but they spray wonderfully. It was just a matter of fixing the pressure on my brush, and it just went on beautifully. but they do take a bit longer to dry. Well, I don't mind that, but they take a bit longer to dry. The results are great in my opinion. It's the first time I use an AK interactive color, so those are my first impressions on it. It's great, I like them. They are less thicker than Model Air, although I do like Model Air a lot. They're easy, they're just, just shake them a bit, set them into the airbrush and spray it, you're just good to go. These I find you have to shake them very, very well. You should not use these colors unless you really, really shake these very well. I've tried it first, just with, the way I used to do it with with Vallejo hair, Model Air, and these did not spray well until they were thoroughly shaken. Only then they behaved perfectly, but they did behave perfectly. They were wonderful, and you get really smooth surface, really, really thin layer of perfect color. That's what I think. So this is what I've done. On the next phase of the build, I'll paint the chipping on this model. I don't want to really overdo it on this one because, well, I don't want to. This is not a fighting vehicle. I want to make it used. Yes, like because it was on the testing grounds. It's a prototype. They're going to perform a few tests. They're going to stress a bit the functionalities of this vehicle, but I don't want to overdo it on this one. I will, however, chip all the areas that were used, stepped on, and probably were more subjected to wear and tear. So guys, that's it. That's it for now. I might do a sort of a tutorial on chipping. I've been thinking about that, but I don't know if I can make a really nice tutorial the way Hamilcar Barkas or Cohen or, well, QDC, they do the way they do, because they're really they really know what they're doing. I go at this by instinct, so not sure I can do it as well as they do it. Another guy that does excellent tutorials is Paul from ISM. But well, I don't have the abilities I don't think I have the abilities to make such a nice tutorial. But I'm thinking of trying, and even if it doesn't come out too good, well, at least I've tried. So guys, tell me what you think. Please just leave a comment or something if you want a tutorial, if you like the model, the way it's going. And see you guys on ISM. Happy modeling. Bye.